So they took part in a hackathon when they were in high school, and now they're helping to design and run, you know, well, not just say hackathons, other opportunities. Um, this particular set, of the 4 students that were here to help with the hackathon that just happened, 3 of them, um, who one of them has tests coming up that happen when this is going to be, but we're going to be going to Italy tomorrow morning. It's on a 6:30 flight, um, and at the end of our week-long workshops with the Roiti High School, um, in Ferrara, Italy, there's a large number of Ukrainian refugee families being hosted, uh, uh, and there's approximately 80 students from very young to, uh, 18, 19. And what we're going to do is run some activities for all of the students for a couple of days, like 2 3-hour sessions currently, and maybe more. These students volunteered to go with us over there. The BCN squad, you have Anna, Julia, and Marichel, are we'll be setting up flights for them. We're figuring out host families for them, and it's going to be essential because it's just David and Roberto and me who are going to still be in town because everyone else needs to get back to school and whatnot. Um, and so their participation is going to be essential. And you go, um, sorry, I get emotional about that.
No, I think one of the things that I think it's amazing, and I think it's your merit and Alicia's merit too, is that you have created a community around this. It's not so easy. Every teacher knows, I think, every teacher who has tried to do it knows, it's not so easy to create a community around learning and around one school subject, which normally doesn't happen. I wanted you to ask one thing, and I will begin. I want you to ask, to share the m- the your the not the most important, but the most moving experience you've, or the most surprising experience, one of the experience you've got in a hackathon that you think is important. I want to share one with you. In the hackathon, there was a school I knew from my job in the coordination project, and I was talking with the teacher of technology the first day and with the teacher of social science that came the second day because the technology teacher couldn't come and he came. And they both shared me one thing that I think that it impressed me. They said, I would have never believed I would have my kids, these kids, talking in the bus, emotionate, caring a lot about what they were going to do. They have been on the bus discussing what they are going to do. It's incredible to see my students so involved in this process without me having to do nothing. I haven't told them you have to talk in the bus about this, but they have been doing it. This impression that what you have said at the beginning, you see your students in a different light and you discover they're able to do things you wouldn't have guessed. And they themselves discovered that. And I think that's great. Who wants to share? Another?
Um, so one of the things, if you think about when we're coming in here, there's sort of the pyramid of the people that are the most experienced but we're a scarce resource. And you're trying to walk across the floor where the hackathon and people are trying to get your attention, and not just the students but also the mentors, because the mentors kept on saying, what do I do, what do I do? And saying to them, do what you do best. We're giving you the authority to make your own decisions. And when I start seeing them make their own decisions, that's great. And then when they are working with their teams and telling the teams, you can make your own decisions. In the beginning, sort of the epiphany for me was when the students kept on saying, David, we have a question, we have a question. And usually it was a technical question. By the end of the program, it was, David, oh, we don't have a question for you. We need to talk to one of the other mentors. Where are they? And so they had been empowered to do these things and were being respected by the students as being the new experts.
We have a surprise guest.
Hello. Sorry, I'm a guest here. I'm on the side. Oh, my name is Roberto. I'm with this crazy group of people. I grew up in El Salvador. I'm from El Salvador, but I went to MIT and met Ed and Chi, and we've been doing this for a while. And try to, for me, the most important thing is to grab kind of these crazy experiences and applying to my job. It's a very important thing. It's also very liberating, and it reminds me why I'm an engineer. Because sometimes, the grown-up world is boring. So I'll just say something real quick to David's point. Actually, one of the big experiences, what the kids kept, asking for materials, for advice and stuff like that. But one of the things that moved me the most was one time there was a kid. I was helping one of the kids, and then the other kid came to me kind of at the same time and was like, "Oh, do you think where can I get this?" And then before I could say anything, the other kid I was talking to was like, "Oh, we have some in my table. Let me give you some." And that's that goes to the fact of community. It doesn't matter how cool you're doing. It doesn't matter if you're doing spaceships. It doesn't matter if you're doing whatever. But if you don't have the community, you're not gonna like it. And if you build a good community, you're able to do big things. So I think that's key. And another experience that one of the teachers told me actually was that they came in the second day, I think, after they had gotten some ideas. Then all the kids were on their phones, and all the kids were on the laptops, and then they're all looking at ideas. They're all looking for information. And the teacher couldn't believe it. He was like, yeah, if they were in my class, they'll be looking at Instagram or something. But he was like, I can't believe it. All of them are looking at constructive things. And this is very important for today's generation, because the kids today are the first kids that grew up with the internet. I remember, I'm 32 years old, so I remember not having internet or having slow internet. The kids today are growing up with internet, high-speed internet for all their whole life, with social media their whole life. There's a lot of dangerous things that come with it, but there's also a lot of positive things that come with it. And these kids are getting basically made to be automatic content creators. Think about all the people that want to be influencers, all these things. But when you give them more creativity, and when you give them, when they see that the internet is not only a place just to show off or whatever, but a way to get information, to even build more information, more kind of cool things on top of it, a lot of magic things come. And I think in education, that's very important, because we have to shift away from teaching content to teaching skills and understanding how you do things, how you get information, how you use that to do something. And I think that's very, very key. And we saw that very early on. And I think that's specifically for the generation coming after us, right? My generation. It's a very, very important thing, because these guys grew up with the internet, and us adults have to learn how they learn, because that's, at the end of the day, that's what it is.
Amen. I think it's important that one of the things about the hackathons and community is that I think it's important to invite students in, to have them feel like you're seeing them and they're seeing you, and you invite them, and you share some vulnerability yourself. Teachers in general don't want to be vulnerable in front of a classroom. I think that's one of the rules, right? But we are. We don't know if we know the answer. We know we're having problems with technology. We know, but we're there to try, and they know that we are there trying. That's one thing. So it's important to invite. It's important to be vulnerable, and it's important to depend on them, and they can frequently solve your problem. Okay. And then in terms of impact, that you see on students, early on at the Roiti High School, they did a presentation for Kassel, Germany, SFN up there. I forget what it stands for. It's a very long name. And they made a long video of all the projects that they had done. But specifically at the end, they had 3 students talk about what was the impact on them for these programs, not about the project, but about what was different. And I'll get emotional. like Alice said, things like you can know all of the physical laws of the world and still know nothing. And it's just so true. And that in the normal classrooms in Italy, the students just always feel judged, and they're kind of afraid to share their thoughts because they're afraid to be wrong and to be criticized for being wrong in front of their peers. And here she said that she could talk to a professor from the other side of the ocean who she did not know. She could talk to him in a friendly way and not be afraid. And where if she said if she got something wrong, I would tell her what was right. But we could just discuss what was going on and share ideas. And that just, you know. And then L.A. Said that she learned that she has a voice. And Clara said that, and L.A. said that it was important, her own, that she has, she's reserved and anxious. She has lots of anxieties, but she realized that everyone has some anxieties, and that if you rely on each other, you can trust people and form a team, and together you can get through anything. And that she has a voice and that she needs to express it. Okay. Clara had the same thing, that again, she's a shy individual, very reserved, but in this setting she was wonderful, and just to hear the impact is just really incredible.
And also another emotional thing that you can share with this kind of activities is that it doesn't mind the age that they have, because you can have a lot of different age mixed. For example, in the hackathons we have people that has the science 14, 18 years old, and once they are working together, you can't, because in the sense they work passionate with the only aim to achieve a goal, and it's not necessary to know anything. So all the people are in the same way involved, and this kind of feeling that it was trying to share with us in this moment, that are ones that you can feel where they are working. It doesn't, when they are trying to achieve their goal, more or less. You know.
Yeah, definitely everything that everyone else has already shared. I think it doesn't really come down to like one particular moment that really like stands out. I think in general it's more just like the culmination and being able to be a part of the growth and the change that happens with the different students. I feel like one of the things that can be hard about hackathons, especially like working with a bunch of students, is like not really getting a chance to really sit down and get to know them better. You only get them in like images and snapshots, really. But like, I think one thing that's really great is like when there's those instances of just like, oh, I have introduced you to something, and like seeing kind of a little light switch of like I had this one student approach me, just kind of like asking about engineering or whatever, sharing that like I'm kind of interested in animation too, but I also think this is really cool, and I'm just like, hey, have you ever heard of like 3D modeling? And like there's people who have to make animations of 3D modeling, and so I was able to just like quickly pull up a YouTube video right before like the hackathon started and just be like, this is something that people need to do. I work with like 3D models. I do not do anything with animation. Like that is a whole skill set. And like being able to just be like, I don't really know anything about this, but I know it exists. And if I can just open that window for you, you have to take the next step. But I can at least like show you that option's there. And I think I know for myself that that was really, really important, because I like definitely still am the kind of person who like needs someone else to like open the door. Like even if the door's open and I'm like, what's behind that door? Or like that door's open, it looks interesting. Like I often need someone to be like, hey, let's go through the door. And so I think being able to do that with other people and like be a part of that for students, and really like just, I think helping people realize their potential, I think that's like really, really meaningful for me.
Also, I think that any of these workshops gives people to meet and do things that are outside their comfort zone. I mean, we're coming to a culture and a language. We have the barriers of talking to people. Some of these students may never have met a woman engineer before, and to see that they are not that different from themselves can lead them to try different things.
Something not from this workshop, but from a different workshop that I ran, is we had this these like exit surveys, and so it was me from MIT, another 2 people from Olin College of Engineering, which is a tiny engineering school, but they're really cool, and someone from Stanford. And one of the comments was just like, I never thought people from these universities were like real people. Because like as part of the activity, we just kind of like answered some questions and talked about like what our lives were, what our challenges were, etc. And again, kind of like behind breaking down barriers, maybe like I'm the first like female engineer that they've seen, but like I'm also silly. I like I try to not take myself too seriously. I can't, because like I'm just not. And I think like we're all kind of silly a lot of the time, and I think that there is this vision of like a professional engineer, like a professional whatever. And it's like, no, you can be yourself. And you can like bring yourself, and like maybe it'll be challenging to be yourself because the world isn't always like built for different people. But I think like that encouragement, and again, like finding community, and just like kids coming in not knowing each other and then leaving as friends, like that's also an incredible experience. Like our BCN squad, like I don't know if they were friends before. Yeah, they never met before, and now they like hang out and stuff. That's like super cool.
One thing that surprised me too, and I think it was really incredible from the ambience you managed to organize there, from not just what kids are doing, but somehow the culture you as a team are able to create in the hackathons, is that what you were saying at the beginning, it's a joyful environment, and it's an environment where playing is like a normal way to behave. And it's like, at the same time, a really serious thing to do, but a joyful thing to do, and that's incredible. And talking about that, what are you playing here with? I mean, you explain to us, what's this?
Well, we have limited time before we have to get on a plane and go to Italy, like hours. And so we don't have much time to do these magic bottles, and I wanted to leave a couple here. This is an activity where you basically combine some isopropyl alcohol, some water, and you use salt to precipitate the isopropyl out of the water. And you end up with 2 clear solutions, 2 clear liquids that share a bottle. And what's fun is that one is lighter, less dense than the other, and so it tends to float to the top. And so you have these 2 clear liquids, and yet you can see that there's a boundary between them. And it's fun when you hand this to a student and say, what do you observe, or what do you notice? You know, they say but you say, look closer, and then all of a sudden they discover, wait a minute, there's something, and it's fun watching them try to explain what they're seeing. And eventually they shake it, and then they look at it, and it's no longer clear, it's translucent. But then you can see the area of translucence gets smaller, and it approaches the middle, and it becomes that barrier again. And it's just wonderful to have them start exploring it. And eventually, there's so many things. This has to do with organic chemistry. It has to do with optics, with density. When you start coloring things in here too, we've done things where you end up getting concepts of Rayleigh scattering. There's so many different concepts that product design is another one. that this simple bottle is something that is a young person would just see it as a magic bottle, and then, but yet you can talk about all these college level topics, any age level. It's just fun. And so a lot of these ideas come from the Saturday thing that we do at MIT, which is a time where we open our lab and there's no agenda. It's just people who venture in because it's sort of near the MIT. There's an MIT museum exhibit near where we are, and we have drop-ins. But then we have people like David that brings his son, and then all of a sudden he's there for 10 years or whatever it is. This bit of serendipity, this bit of we don't know what we're getting into. We're just interesting people sharing ideas and insights, and then some weird idea comes in, and then we start playing with it. That unfettered research aspect of this is joyful. Again, joyful is just, I keep using the word, but that's what it is. It's a lot of work frequently, but it's also just plain interesting and a sharing experience. Now, one thing I wanted to mention is that with groups like the BCN Squad, or in Italy, they have it's a different program in that they have a 5-year program in their school as opposed to a 2-year program. So they have an advantage that younger students get involved, and then they take the program once or twice, and many of them get interested in being mentors and actually running the program. They are the ones that actually organize and run the program with support of the teachers. It started out where you had very few girls were involved. I think it was the first year they did it, in our long workshop, there were, of 25 students, there were 2 girls. There's a much longer story here that we won't go into, but after 2 years, there was a leadership team with 14 students with, 8 girls and 6 boys that were the leadership team. And the participants had 27 girls, and I forget how many boys, but it was like 24 boys or something like that, near equal. But that much change happened in almost no time. And it was because of authentically having the students be part of defining this particular academic environment. Instead of having it be that they are simply recipients of it, they are actively helping to drive it. So in terms of the respect that they feel from the adults, the responsibilities that they take on, the dedication that they give to it, change can happen much more quickly if they're involved. And that's one of the things that's just glaringly apparent when you do this. The trouble is, it's hard to get to that stage where you have experienced students your first year. Okay, it's hard to get people that have had 3 years experience in your first year, which is why I said early on that you probably want help to do this kind of thing. You want to get a school nearby, like Seek, to be able to help out. I remember when we first visited, you offered Christina and 2 students to come here with me, because I didn't have any MIT students with me. And so the teacher in Italy and 2 of her students came over, and we ran a small teacher professional development activity and some hands-on activities for students here. That was the first time here. So this bit where when people do this, they see the value, they feel the value, and a lot of that value is knowing that you're empowered to help and to be service to other people. So it's a contagious thing. It could be a very positive virus that goes around.
Talking about virus slightly, yeah, yours.
Just to add on to that a little bit, I think one of the things that Ed's kind of mentioned is that people come back and people support, and so it's really like the students who continue to run it. And here the BCN Squad are like university students who are coming back even though they have classes and tests, and they need to get a paper to get excused from their classes and tests so they don't get in trouble. And I think that's something that makes a program really successful, is to have complete buy-in and care in the community in which it's happening, where the students want to be a part of it, not just because it's good for their resume or for like their future careers, but it's because it's something that gave an important experience to them, that they really enjoyed, that they get joy from, and that they want to help support that in others because they get joy from that experience. And in the programs that I've worked with that I think are the most successful, there's always the alumni who just kind of like come back for years and years, and people who are like, 20 years out from a program and still like come back and support it. And so I think really one of the big things in Ferrara that has been, I think, working well is as students go to university from the program, them coming back helps to strengthen that relationship with the university too. And so now you have these university students who actually have experience, like might have more experience than like a lot of the like TAs that a university might end up like. I don't know if they're like TAs in university here. Not too much. Teaching assistants. Huh. Okay. Well, I think that's like a really important and underutilized resource, because if you have to teach someone else something, you really need to know it, and it can really help to deload the teachers who already have so much to deal with. I'm pretty sure something that is common across all areas that teachers are definitely overworked. And so just spreading the load out makes it a lot more manageable, but also really just like it's helpful for everyone involved. And that community really makes it just like, as another organization that I work with calls it, it's like the secret sauce.
I was thinking when you were talking that for a teacher that wants to get involved, wants to have their students involved in one of those activities, maybe the first advice it would be what you said: look for help. Don't begin by yourself. This is a process that's not automatic. It's not easy one. You need some years to do it. The first year, go and check a hackathon. Go and visit one. Go and see how this evolves. Then try to look for help. Try to look for more people involved, and then you can begin to organize something. Maybe you can participate as a school, and then sometimes later you can organize by yourself with another schools around. It's a slow process, but I think it's a process that would be really interesting, because there is one thing that you comment when we were talking that I think it's important. We are not pretending hackathons are the way to teach, the only one way to teach. A hackathon is something you have to do at some moment, like the match. You have to play some matches. You have to do some hackathon. You shouldn't be doing one hackathon after another. That's unsustainable, and that makes no sense. But once it's important to do something like that. It's really important to have something. And well, we can try to, that's a dream. I would love to have much more hackathons organized around our country, in which much more schools involved and trying to learn, because it's a learning process together, and I think that's great.
First, I agree. I mean, the way I say it is that these types of events all of a sudden give oxygen to what the student's experience is. That's why it seems like they come so alive and blossom in this. But I think we shouldn't think of the hackathon as what the schools should adopt. Teaching people, how to be told a set of theory or whatnot, and then to exercise it and do it. That's a valuable thing. It's required. I think a logical, presentation of concepts is essential. However, I think how do you work in a team is something that when you say hackathon, there is a lot of hacking that goes on, but to do a logical sequence of engineering design or just design technique, that's also a discipline. It is not like engineering is something that you hack through. And when you think of it, uh, like science is the pursuit of knowledge, okay, whatever depth you can get. Mathematics, is a great thing that allows you to, with measurement, you can, put mathematical concepts to our observations, and you can then do science. Engineering is different. It's about empowerment. It's about creating new magic. The world's a magical place, and engineering is about extending human capabilities. It is a discipline, but it's also not something that's unique to engineers. If you want to cook a good dinner, you are using engineering technique. If you're going to write a good paper, you're going to do probably a draft or two and have this iterative process of design, which is basic engineering design technique. There's a formal aspect to getting something done that applies across all disciplines. This should be in the core area of education. It should not just be something that is done, as a side thing just to spark something. So we need that for all students to have the opportunity of hackathons. But it's my assertion that one of the big problems with our education system is that it's focused on proof of knowledge and some skill sets that have to do with solving predetermined types of questions that have been solved. Okay? If you want the people that are going to go out and do the new things that are out there to discover, and solve the impossible problems now, they've got to develop a skill set that is just not nurtured or encouraged in school right now. They've got to be a little disruptive. They've got to challenge current concepts. Where do you give them that ability? Where do you say it's okay? Where do you encourage them to actually challenge us? So I applaud the hackathon. It is certainly a necessary beginning. We have hackathons for MIT students at MIT because it encourages our students to think more freely and not to wait until they know all the answers before that they can take a step. But we also teach engineering, and we teach good technique for working in teams and moving forward. So I just wanted to make sure that we don't rest back on just hackathon.
Yeah.
And I wanted to follow up on that. I mean, I've seen so many other programs that are run as, a one day or a weekend or a summer project. And a lot of those times the projects are defined to have, a defined beginning, a defined end, and then the kids think they're done with it. And the hackathon, what we'd like to see is people want to follow through on it. Maybe it becomes a club activity. Maybe it becomes a hobby for them, because if you can achieve something or fail within 2.5 days, what can you do if you keep working on it?
And that's what really happened with the Snitch group. Yeah, they start in a hackathon 2 years ago, just before the pandemic situation. They must build something like an ROB remote. They must build an ROB, a remote operated vehicle, but as the same that the others. But they decide not to do the same. They decide to be creative. And once the hackathon has finished, they will continue working on it. But they don't knew before, so they weren't friends before the hackathon, and then the pandemic, with the lockdown, makes that they couldn't meet at the school, so they become a lot of problems, but they solve because they were with enough motivation to continue. It doesn't matter the problems that they were. They couldn't achieve all the materials that they had, so they changed the project. And at least what had begun with a remote operated vehicle became a long-term project with a fantastic camera that makes a fantastic map of the different situation in order to rescue a person that's over there. And that, don't forget, grows from the little seed that was planted one day in a 3 days activity called a hackathon. That's, I think, the same that you are trying to do. That's important. The impact that this kind of activities has in the students, not in all, obviously, but I think it's enormous, because with this kind of activities, as you said, Sylvia, we show them that all the knowledge that they have achieved from the beginning of the learning processes can be applied to something, to one goal, to one objective. And that's, I think, the important aspects of the hackathon.
Yeah, I totally agree. You made me think, when they were discussing with science teachers, no, with technology teachers in this case, talking about, okay, we teachers in general are good at teaching contents. We might want to be better. We never are good enough, but that's what a teacher is supposed to do. High expectations are important, but okay, we are quite good at teaching content. But if you think about, we were talking with science teachers and we said, if you think about it, anyone here in this room knows much, much more physics than Isaac Newton and Galileo Galilei together. You know much more physics than them, in fact. If being a if being a physicist was knowing physics, you are much better than Newton. Whenever you are depressed, think about it, it's good. But in fact, being a scientist is not knowing physics, it's being able to create physics, to discover physics. So something similar happens with engineering. You can know a lot of things about electricity, you can know how to make problems with the gears, you can know about a lot of things about materials, but that's not being an engineer. That's knowing engineering, that's not being an engineer. And this difference, it's important. You have to practice both of them. I have a degree in science. I never did a research till I got in a PhD program. In all my I graduated without making one single research that I didn't know the result of. I made a huge amount of practices. They were great. I learned a lot of things. But every practice I did, I already knew which was the result was supposed to be. I never encountered that uncertainty of the uncertainty that you are a specialist at, because Ed tends to make a lot of questions to show you a trick and said, why is this happening like this? You are going to explain. It's almost time to finish, I think. You should explain.
I'm trying to do something where we could use blue and white. I'm trying to do this thing so I can use blue and white beads for when we work with the Ukrainian students. Hopefully we can do this. And I've just found out that yeah, I know. I just didn't. I need to have ones that float too. Okay, the white ones float. But I wanted to get different colors. Well, I'm finding out that the blue beads sink no matter what. And so I had I've never seen beads of this nature that sank, in all times. So you always have to be willing to try something, which is why I'm trying it here in this instance. So I apologize, but you find out that your theory is just theory until you actually prove it.
Which country has a white and red flag? You will have to look for students. Canada. You need Canada. You close from whom? You can do that with Canadian. Switzerland, yeah.
Well, I'm adding yellow now.
You're adding yellow. Let's see what happens with yellow. Yeah. We've got some minutes left. I don't know if someone wants to say something else. See, no? Apart from trying to guess what happened with yellow beans, while Ed is playing with yellow beans, I just want to say thank you very, very much. Thank you to the FIP, to the Facultat d'Informàtica de Barcelona, for sharing this space with us and for allowing us to be here. Thank you to the Societat Catalana de Tecnologia for helping us. And over everything, thank you to everybody who's in that table for your work, for your knowledge. But we've got that as well.
Yellow and blue want to stay together.
Yes. I think you can work with Ukraine. Oh no, it's not. It's well. I don't know if I like the metaphor. Let's say. Well, think about it. We have to give some more thought. The one thing too. The idea is, thank you very much for being here. Not just for all the knowledge you bring, which is huge, but for the way of looking at the world that you bring. That it's incredible. I think.
I'd like for universities, like we just had a wonderful talk with Mark today. MIT has a huge amount of focus on reaching out to, we call it PK-12, preschool, kindergarten, all the way through, just before you get to college. There was a study in a task force, faculty task force in 2013, and about the future of MIT education. How should we be going forward? We're now in the future here, by the way. And in 2013, they did a survey, and they mentioned like the Edgerton Center, where I work, it has one of our mandates is doing community outreach, in particular K-12. But around MIT, there were 80 different programs that had to do with outreach. 80. 80. Okay, now that's a large number, okay? And they were mostly uncoordinated with each other, okay? And so since then, they've actually done a lot of things to help bring that community together and to encourage us to share some, okay? Are we really great at it yet? No, we could be doing better, but we're really trying. It's in our mandate. It was item number 9 of 15 that was specific about this. And there were, I think, 4 other like community service aspects and whatnot that also bear on K-12. I would love any other universities here, like with here and wherever, if you're interested in doing this kind of thing with your students. Our MIT students are actively involved in this, okay? And it's a powerful technique to encourage a broader range of high school students to come to university. It actually is inviting them to come and take part in university. And it's also training your own university students to have a sense of communicating with the community and reaching out. So if anyone's interested in talking about it, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to introduce you to other people at MIT that are involved in trying to think of it from a larger university perspective. So just wanted to reach out.
And as a teacher involved in this kind of a teacher from a high school involved in this kind of activities, I will thank you the support that the teachers from university, like in this case MIT, but also from the UPC, will support us. We will be grateful because we need this kind of support that allows us to go farther from where we are now. It's critical for us because if we are trying to do this kind of activities that keeps out of our control zone, comfort zone, probably with the help of the universities, like MIT in this case, of UPC, if they want to do, it will be not only helpful, but also critical. So ho dic en català, jo a mi m'agradaria que totes aquelles persones que creguin que això és possible, sigui de la universitat que sigui, en particular, o de la facultat que sigui, s'animin a posar-se en contacte amb nosaltres, perquè nosaltres el que volem precisament és això, volem tirar endavant aquest tipus d'iniciatives i sap greu, doncs, o ens agradaria fer-ho, més ben dit, amb gent d'aquí, amb gent amb la que poguéssim fer-ho no només un cop a l'any i no només unes determinades escoles, sinó amb molts més centres que volguessin veure's implicats. Sorry, I will translate later, but I think that this message was important to say it in my own language. Per mi és molt important això transmetre-ho. Thanks, Ed.
Thank you very much to everybody. And if you don't mind, we'll have to hear. Thank you to the technical part. Thank you to the assistants. Thank you. Okay. Okay. So we left it here. Great.